Thank you so much for making it. That was really, I know, not so easy with this weather. So really appreciate that you came so early. And hopefully we will have a very exciting 40 minutes together. We have fantastic panelists about the subject. We are just going to discuss about secondary cities and how international operators can actually contribute for these secondary cities, especially in the kingdom, of course. So may I already start introducing Tariq Dowidar, Vice President for the Kingdom for Aleph Hospitality. Tariq, maybe, yeah, if you go, it's always under. Elie Milky, Vice President Development for Radisson. Maher Abu Nasr, Vice President Operation, IHG, Saudi Arabia. And Carlos Khneisser, Vice President Development of Hilton. Yeah, perfect. Yes, you saw it right. Excellent. Thank you so much. Tariq, if I may start with you on one of the questions about secondary cities. How Aleph Hospitality does define secondary cities, and you especially, you mentioned to me, for example, as a Saudi, you don't like to refer to it as secondary city. So if you can please give us a little bit more, elaborate on that.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for asking this question. We had a great conversation actually outside about the word of the secondary cities. We as a Saudis, we don't look into it as a secondary cities. It is, to be honest, we call it as a tourism cities. It's the first and attractive destination for the domestic tourist. And we have noticed that during the summer, if we talk about Abha, it's a beautiful places that where the locals, mainly the locals tourists, they spend their times. And we have noticed that during the season of certain those cities, the city occupancy has jumped to more than 85, and could be more than that. And sometimes you cannot find at least a single room, everything is sold out. We noticed also the for worldwide, and I believe that Al-Ula is one of the success stories for that.
Elie, would you, as Radisson, first of all, agree that let's call them tier 2 cities, that these cities, Radisson can really contribute to the demand, to the appeal of these cities? Have you any examples historically?
Yeah, I mean, we've been in Yanbu, for instance, since 2002. We've recently, over the past 10 years, entered Jizan and Najran and Buraida. We've recently signed in Al-Ahsa and Ha'il and Hafr al-Batin. If you look at numbers, some of these hotels that have opened in Buraida, Najran, Jizan, for instance, generated maybe 20 to 40,000 room nights last year in 2023. Those, let's say, 30,000 or so room nights in each hotel were not there before these hotels opened. Where did the guests stay? So it induced demand. People have more options places where to stay, and it's something that we're looking to expand into other secondary cities as we grow.
Thank you. Carlos, Hilton was one of the first brands really to come into this market, into the Middle East, into the kingdom. Is this still a venture that you're continuing now that Hilton has, of course, elaborated much more in the region, has become much bigger? Is that still something that you venture into cities which maybe not yet are on the global map?
Yeah, thank you, Aboudi. You know very well, I mean, we have a track record, and Hilton has a track record in being first to open in untapped cities like Like, for example, when we opened our first Hilton Garden in Tabuk, in Al-Ahsa, we're doing, a fantastic project. We signed recently with Danco, 3 great projects, which will be focused on agri, eco, and adventure tourism. And hopefully we'll replicate the same into different regional cities. So I believe, the regional cities in Saudi Arabia will perform exceptionally well. You have the infrastructure, you have the airlift, and basically any hotel that you develop where demand is there, it's obviously, that's gonna perform. In addition, when you put a Hilton in the secondary cities, this create, a great confidence and trust for individuals, internal or external, to come and visit. And as you know, I don't want to list all the regional cities that we have been developing, but it's been quite a journey for us, in terms of expanding our presence from Riyadh, Mecca, and Medina to the regional cities around Saudi Arabia. I think it's a superb adventure for us. We're still, Saudi Arabia is still, a great focus for us. And hopefully, those secondary cities where we have a presence will continue to perform to a better levels.
And it is part of your strategy to really expand in these tier 2 cities.
Yeah, of
Just
course.
not to upset Tariq.
For me, yes, of course, we have close to 200 million members around the world who would like, to visit Saudi Arabia, isn't it? So by those members that loyal members that would arrive to Riyadh or arrive to Jeddah or Medina or Mecca, there's no doubt when we have a presence in the regional cities, they would love, to explore it, because those regional cities have completely different offerings. Abha offers something completely different than Al-Ahsa. Al-Ahsa offers completely different. It's a huge country, but those regional cities are country within a country in terms of what they can provide for tourism.
Thank you. Maher, same here with ISG. Obviously, you've been also one of the first international brands, really, especially with Intercontinental, to be in the kingdom, especially in secondary cities. I remember Abha, of course, being one of the first ones, and Taif, Jubail. How much do you give attention to tier 2 cities, as now, of course, business is very dominant in Riyadh, in the Eastern Province, in Jeddah, and of course in the holy cities, but do you give also attention to the cities that are upcoming?
Yeah, thank you, Aboudi. A lot of focus is on these cities, regardless what name we call them. I think it's easier to identify what primary cities are, and then everything else becomes other, non-primary. You're right. We were the first to enter these cities with examples like Abha, like Al-Ahsa, like Al-Jubail, and not only with the Intercontinental brand, with like Hafr al-Batin, you mentioned it, Elie. We were in and out of that with the Holiday Inn brand as well. So do we focus? Of course we do. Our main mission is to provide more experiences, more alternatives for our guests, and particularly the loyal guests. So the more we are able to be present in those locations and showcase the different experiences that they can get in those destinations, then that's definitely something we will want to do.
And if I may ask any of the panelists, at what category do you come in? For example, in these secondary cities, do you say, well, first of all, we would only consider, for example, franchise, and second of all, we would only consider one of our non-core brands, if I may call them, first to test the market, and then they later on expand? Or do you really believe, so to say, in a different strategy where you really come with very high, 5-star luxury product offering, if the ownership or your investor is interested in? How would you define that? Please go ahead.
Yeah, listen, I think there's a little bit of past, present, and future for this question. The company that signed Intercontinental in Al-Ahsa was a company that was one brand, which is Intercontinental. I think today, with the portfolio of brands that we have, Hilton and the colleagues have, we are able to offer more alternatives for the investors that will give a better return on their investment when it comes to opening hotels in these cities. So it's no longer that we have one brand and want to spread it. And to Elie's earlier point, these brands used to attract tourism into those destinations because the brand was available there. But in today's world, well, I think we can provide the same attraction, but with a more reasonable brand offering to the investors.
To add to that, I agree with Maher that having the right brand, the guests will come, but which guests are we attracting? Are they able to afford a five-star brand? Are we getting the returns for the investors? So now it's a more sophisticated investment than we did 20 years ago and 30 years ago. But what's very important is that we are in line, we need to be in line with the tourism strategy. But for instance, we need to help the tourism strategy not to promote too many five-star hotels in certain destinations where we believe we need to have a more affordable category, such as a mid-scale hotel or a four-star hotel, because we know that it's too risky for any investor to go in with a high-level five-star hotel in certain destinations. It's an ongoing conversation with different government entities and with different investors to warn them that it might be a nice idea to sign a five-star hotel, but it may not give you the return that you're looking for. It may be a nice idea to promote a lifestyle hotel in Al-Ahsa or in Ha'il or Abha, but maybe we need to enter with a core, to-the-point brand to get your returns before we become more sophisticated in that destination. I think it's good to educate the market and work with them that way.
Tariq, if I may ask you very quickly just, yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, can I add also what Maher and Elie meant? Here actually where Aleph Hospitality can play a big role on unblocking having those international brands to enter to the tourism city. I will keep mentioning it's tourism cities. Here with that as you have mentioned that we had a great success stories in Africa that we help all the brands to get into certain cities that they don't want to go and manage it in it. So those tourism cities from the time in that we are familiar with this and we can support all the international brands to get in and get in. And we have a great stories like when we had recently we have signed an Indigo with an IHG in Abha as a franchise agreement, and we're working with all the international brands.
And that's a very good point, that actually exactly what I wanted to ask you is, do you see some of the international operators, and we've seen it actually for some, that in secondary cities where or let's call them tourism cities, where they don't see too much added value from their headquarters, from their own contribution in assisting these destinations, they're actually more sympathetic with providing a franchise.
Yeah.
Is that a strategy that you would agree with, Carlos?
I want to just touch base on which brand, that we use in secondary cities. As a Hilton, when we have a huge portfolio of brands, it gives an added value, for Saudi as an overall. However, if you look at those regional cities, it's finding the right brand and the right location is actually the best added value for both, for owners and for operators. And usually engaging a company like you, JLL, to do some further studies before you commit and before you offer a la carte choice for owners to choose from. So this is something, that owners has to basically take few steps before, they decide, well, I want, X brand, I want to do this brand. It's not the choice that owners has to decide which brand, they want. You end up, when owners comes to the table, he might want, a five-star brand. But what is the demand generators there? what kind of a rate, I mean, you would be able to deliver. So anyhow, I mean, that's why we as a portfolio of brands, we have different price points, I mean, for different customers, for different locations. So I believe, I mean, that the Hilton Garden Inn and Hamptons, I mean, would do a fantastic performance in those secondary cities or regional cities as a start. Why? Because we have a solid presence in the major cities like Riyadh, Jeddah, the religious cities, which propels, I mean, from those main cities, I mean, to the regional cities. So I believe there will be some groundwork, I mean, needs to be done, I mean, before someone, I mean, takes a decision, well, I need to choose from a la carte, from the menu of brands. So up to now, I believe that regional cities are in need. There is a gap for international brands, and that's why we are extremely focused, I mean, to grow our footprint in these areas.
Fantastic.
Aboudi, can I add something? Just two things on that. A recent Knight Frank report, I think it was a recent Knight Frank report, when they mentioned 320,000 keys. Sorry to mention Knight Frank on a JLL panel.
Not at all.
320,000 keys to open in Saudi by 2030, right? And in the pipeline today, there's, I think, 100 or 150,000 keys, but only 10% of that is in the mid-scale category. And by mid-scale, that includes budget, because in those categories, there's no budget. And that's part of the big opportunity in primary cities and in regional cities to have budget and mid-scale brands, because that's where the opportunity is. If less than 10% of those that are opening in the next 3 years are budget and mid-scale, then we need to fill that gap by 2030. That's something to keep in mind as well.
And is that based on customer profile changes, or simply it is already an existing customer profile that is just not met with the product that they're requiring? Do you see a trend in customer profile changes?
I think there's a change in investor needs, investor mindset. I think more and more investors are seeing the opportunity. It's no more emotional investments or ego investments. And I think if you build a budget hotel in Abha, you're going to fill it up with backpackers. Without a budget hotel in Abha, nobody's going to go there. Just to simplify it. And to franchising, we're trying to work with Aleph as well. We're hopefully signing our first franchise soon in the market, and hopefully soon with Aleph in the coming months. But yes, we are doing more franchising in the market.
Thank you very much for that. I want to add what Carlos and Elie mentioned about as you mentioned, that most of the investors or the owner are looking for a lifestyle products, and they want to have a 5-star hotels on those tourism cities. So it's our role that where we can convince the owner that to add value and to make more profitability, that we can go to the mid-scale, and then that's the time where we can choose the right brand with the different skills based on the type of the owner, capacity of his assets in terms of the size of the room, in terms of the location, especially of the location. So when we do this old statistic and study to the owners, that we believe, since we are an independent operators, that mid-scale brand that suit your product or suit your hotels, that you're going to gain more than doing a lifestyle or 5-star. And it works in most of the owners.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Tariq. Maher, if I come back to you, you probably received the opportunities directly to your office and then pass it on to development. Before, probably you vetted yourself and analyze it. Can I ask for, these second-tier cities, which ones what is your criteria normally to say, okay, worthwhile looking at it, and we'll pass it on and look if there is an opportunity? For example, you know that GDP contributions in the kingdom are really dispersed equally, around 30% for Riyadh and the Eastern Province, 15% for Jeddah, and then the rest is dispersed with the other cities. Is that a key factor, or is it visitation, or is it, for example, PIF initiatives where you know there are major plans, master plans being undertaken?
Well, I think the answer is all of the above. We take all of that into consideration. There are those deals that are easy to immediately reject and easy to immediately accept, and there are those that require further studies. Since we opened the 6 census in southern dunes, the number of leads we receive for 6 census in locations we would never even think of putting a 6 census. I mean, that was easy to reject immediately. They're easy to accept if the brand, the request is based on science, on a study that is done by the likes of JLL, that is supported by the government, funded by our partners in the government as well. Then it starts making more sense to us. And if the choice of the brand as well is suitable for that destination. I mean, to Carlos's point earlier, growth in those destinations, or at least entries, has to be in the mid-scale brands and not luxury anymore. Again, in the past, it was a different story. We've just signed a master development agreement with Tashir, and we heard the CEO speak yesterday. The purpose is to spread the Holiday Inn Express brand as well in destinations that we refer to as tourism or secondary. But I want to go back to the point that Tariq made. We would love to work with local operators on a franchise basis. Sometimes companies like Aleph, like our franchise partners like Al-Hukair or Taiba, have better experience in those destinations. We might be the best to run a hotel if it's in Riyadh or Mecca or Jeddah, but sometimes our partners do it better than us. And we'd love to give our brand to partners that we know that they're going to deliver on that brand promise rather than a single owner.
Excellent, thank you very much. We've seen also, if I may take just an example, which is outside of this region, but in South Africa, for example, we did an analysis in Durban, and which was really an unknown city. And then Southern Sun came in with a hotel, and really the engagement, the very active engagement of the Southern Sun team with the Ministry of Tourism, with the authorities, to make it a destination, to redevelop the beach, etc. A lot of initiative, really a lot of effort came from the operator itself to really promote the destination. Is that something that international operators, have been actively doing, or have you have maybe an example of that? I open the panel to anyone.
Look. If you open an hotel anywhere around the world, under one of our brands, you have to take into consideration that the moment you press the button and it opens, you have close to 200 million members will know that you have opened an hotel in Al-Ahsa, for example, or you have opened an hotel in Neom, for example. So this is something. It's a great contribution from us as an operator. The brand equity that we bring, to those cities and to the country itself, okay, is phenomenal. We're a 110 years old company. You took the example of South Africa. I will take the example of Ras Al Khaimah. When we were in Ras Al Khaimah, there was nobody there. And we developed most of our brands, Ras Al Khaimah, when people we were still thinking of entering into Ras Al Khaimah. So this is a great example of how we can contribute on the success of promoting those cities, along with the Ministry of Tourism and the TDF efforts that are being put in place.
Aboudi, can I add one thing also that, thank you, Carlos, for highlighting this. I believe that everybody's seen that what the government and the semi-government investment on the infrastructure of those tourism cities, such Al-Ahsa, such Abha also. Having your foot on the ground, physically in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, especially this time, I believe that it will play a big role on connecting, being the link between the investors and the governments and the international operators. And we noticed that actually recently. We have been open our office more than 1 year during the last year, and we noticed that within a very short period, which is 12 months, we have almost more than 7 projects in a different cross of the region of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So I think it's a great opportunities to unlock those cities. There's a great opportunities for the brands to get in. And as Maher and that, we are here actually to support those brands to be on physically on those all cities.
You have the operator initiatives, you have the partners on the ground, you have the government support. And I think it's important to mention how these cities, whatever we call them, but we know that they're not the major cities of the country, they're the ones with the most potential in the country, have been under our radar for many years, as part of our strategy before the execution of Vision 2030. It's on the radar of the Ministry of Tourism. It's part of the strategy of the National Tourism Strategy, who have laid out all these cities that we're talking about. It's by developing, with the TDF as well, each one of us has signed an MOU with the TDF to develop in these cities as well. In addition, you've got development authorities such as the Asir Development Authority, the Sharqiya Development Authority, coming to you and saying, we have a land bank, bring us an investor, we'll give you the land. And you've got tax incentives and incentive schemes for investors from the government, from the Ministry of Tourism. That kind of support cannot get any better in trying to establish a presence in those cities and across the country.
Excellent.
Training people as well. I mean, this is something that we forget about. I mean, close to, if we look at our pipeline right now, I mean, or trading plus pipeline, we're talking about approximately 100 hotels, which contributes, I mean, to the human capital in Saudi Arabia with approximately 15,000 employees needed in the next 4 to 5 years. I mean, the contribution of Hilton in training individuals and get them ready, I mean, to take the leadership in hotels that we are developing in regional cities and what have you, this is tremendous. We're graduating, I mean, close to 200, 300 individuals every year from our hotels. And, well, out of the 15,000 that we were planning, out of the 15,000 employees that we're planning to have in the next 4 to 5 years, half of them are Saudis. This is as well, I mean, a great contribution from our end, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And to that point, and that's my last question before I open it to the audience, but one of the things which, as JLL, we're undertaking probably around 60 operator searches for 60 assets in the kingdom at the moment. And what we have seen is that, you gentlemen represent very much volume. You very much represent, the big numbers in regards of loyalty card, in regards of number of rooms, etc. But we're seeing more and more now our clients being also interested in these unique properties, unique offerings, which really made a destination just simply by being an extremely unique kind of asset. Just to take an example of the Gstaad Palace in Switzerland, and suddenly there is this interest of having these unique assets, unique name, and what they were able to really provide as a service, as an asset, etc. Is that something that you think as the big name operators you are also able to penetrate, or is that something that we can't be, in every business, and this is something that we are not interested in?
In short, yes, selectively. I think each one of us has 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, and we would be keen to look at more of these opportunities, but on a very, very select basis. And we have some live examples.
Under white label, or how does it then work? Under which label would that go for example, for Radisson?
Branded. By white label, do you mean independent operator or brand?
Yeah, like an independent name, or is it one of your unique names that are flexible enough to really have that twist of the offering?
Branded. In our case, branded for now for now it has to be branded, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, again, it's select opportunities that could work like that. And we try to use our Hotel Indigo brand to bring those experiences to life within the hotel if the destination supports a product like that.
Is Regent potentially also in that offering?
At this stage, in non-primary cities, I doubt it's going to be providing those experiences to our guests.
Interesting. Carlos, from
How many of those stads you're going to do in Saudi Arabia?
Absolutely.
So Saudi Arabia
unique.
is a big country, isn't it? And the plan, to have a significant amount of hotels. So you would need, operators like Hilton with 22 brands, to basically be able to satisfy major cities and regional cities. The Stad is a one-time opportunity. The likes of the Stad, could fit under, for example, for us, could fit under one of our soft brands, the LXR, which sits at the luxury tier, or the Curio collection, or the Tapestry collection. So we have 3 soft brands that can serve these kind of businesses. But again, these are very few opportunities that you might be looking at, while we look at a wider angle, by developing our 22 brands, in the
volume.
in the kingdom.
Fair enough. Tariq, if we started with you, if I may end with you with a very short question. You as a white label operator that brings often then a franchise agreement with one of the main operators or main brands, do you see, especially for the second tier cities, any operator or brand that is more valuable for these secondary cities than others? You have the choice. Right?
Okay. Actually, we as the largest independent operator, management operator in the Middle East and Africa, we are focusing our strategies mainly on selecting the right opportunities. We don't work for the brand. We work with the brand. We work for owners. That's the most important thing. So it depends based on cities, based on the side of the side of the capacities and the design of the owner hotels, which has been an opportunities on those cities. We work with all brands, such as IG, Marriott, and Accor, and thank you. We mentioned that we're going to work with Radisson very soon. Actually, there is no any specific brands that it all depends about the right opportunities that we believe that we will add. This brand will add for us a value on revenue driven, and by the end we'll be able to deliver owner expectation.
So whoever gives you the best fees, basically, that's it. Excellent. Thank you so much. That was very interesting. If I can open it to the audience, I know we ran out of time, but maybe a couple of questions, if anybody has any questions. No? Seems we covered it all very well. Excellent. Well then, thank you so much for your contribution. Really appreciate it. It was very insightful. And wish you all the best and success also in the second tier cities then.
Thank you.
Thank you.